Hi, and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. We're going to be working on another Two's Company series quilt, and that is where you're using your scrap stash to make a beautiful quilt. However, for this week's quilt, we're not going to be using our squares from our stash. We're going to be using our strips from our stash. It's a wonderful way to make beautiful quilts quickly and use up your scrap stash. So let's see how this is done. Before I get started on that, I just want to give you a quick reminder. On Friday, August 22 at 7 p.m. Central Time, which would be Chicago time, I'm going to be hosting my first Zoom session. And this Zoom session, it will be a 2-hour session where I'm going to be teaching you how to scrap up your stash. I'm going to be answering all of your questions, different things we're going to be doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And so I hope you'll join me. And it's only available to those of you who are a member of my Level 1 membership. And for my Level 1 membership, we're going to have monthly 2-hour Zoom sessions where you're going to learn something new from me with regard to your scrap stash. And we're going to work on UFOs, whatever it is that you'd like to work on. But there's so much that I want to teach you. So August 22, 7 p.m. But in order to be able to participate in that Zoom call, you will need to join my at least Level 1. I do have 2 levels, and you can read about that in the description in the box below. I've got a link for how you can become a member. You can click on that link below, and it'll tell you all of the details about both of the membership levels that I have. Membership level number 1, which involves the 2-hour Zoom session every month. That one is only $4.99 per month, and there's so much more that you get. So check that out, and I hope you'll join me. Remember, though, once you go through the process of following the link in the YouTube link and take care of your membership, then you're going to want to go out to my quiltingwithlori.com website. Go to my contact page and email me. Contact me through that. That's how I will get your email address so that I can send you the Zoom link so that you can join. YouTube will not share your email addresses with me. So I need your email address from you once you have become a member. So go ahead and do that. Go out to my quiltingwithlori.com, find the contact page, just email me and let me know which membership that you've applied in. And that way I can get that Zoom link to you, because I can't wait to see all of you. You'll be able to interact with me. We're going to have a lot of fun. And again, that's next Friday, August 22. So check out that membership link below. In September, on, I believe it's September 20th, is Jelly Roll Saturday. We're going to have a 2-hour session on Zoom, and I'm going to teach you my Jelly Roll quilt pattern. So you'll all get this pattern in September, and we're going to be using our Jelly Roll strips. So you can make it in any colors that you want, but you'll want to join so that you get that pattern and can join me on the September Zoom session as well. That's September the 20th. So any questions, just comment below, and I can help you with any questions that you might have. But now let's get to today's quilt. I want you to grab your strip stash, and we are going to have fun. So if you look at this quilt behind me, I have just pinned all of these blocks up here. In fact, I was working on this last week when we were on vacation up in northern Minnesota at the cabin. I always bring my sewing machine with me, and I was having so much fun. I wanted to get some of this videoed and ready for you last week, but we were just having a wonderful time as a family, so that didn't happen. But I did get a lot accomplished, and I do have one more row down at the bottom here that I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to show you how to make these blocks. So there are 2 blocks to this quilt, and this quilt can be put together in so many different variations. You can create your own design. Mine kind of looks like a star, but you could put together a number of these blocks and create your own design. And what I have used are 12.5-inch foundations, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So this is a nice, good size wall quilt. Each of these blocks will finish at 12 inches. And here is just a quick picture of what I've put together. So this is what mine will look like without the border. I don't have any border on there. But basically, you can use a light block and a dark block, and that's all. It's the same block, but I'm just using different values strips on the block. And then the second block is half and half. So half of the block is dark and half of the block is light. And that's how we're creating a lot of these points in here. So it can be so much fun. I have done different things where my center blocks here, instead of having them be all dark, I have added a couple of light things, and I put some gold in the center. I'm just having fun with it. And that's what I encourage you to do. Make this your quilt. Make up a bunch of these blocks and then get up on the design wall or on the floor and have fun creating your very own beautiful strip 1-patch quilt, because that's what this is. It's a striped 1-patch quilt. All right, so the first thing you need to do is go to your strip stash and pull lights and mediums and dark strips from your stash. I am using 2.5-inch wide strips, and I have all links here. Some of them are complete 44-inch long, some of them are just tiny, and you'll be using all of them, so just grab those. I also went through my stash before I left on vacation, and I grabbed reds and greens and lights and some golds. And the reason I did that is I wanted this one to be kind of a Christmassy looking quilt. So that's what I chose to do. You can certainly just make this as scrappy as you want. You do not have to worry about which color you put where if you choose not to. You can just absolutely use everything. What I'm going to show you next is how I've put these together using foundation. And if you've not done any foundation piecing, it's where you're using a piece of fabric or sometimes paper. That's paper piecing. This is foundation piecing. And you're going to actually create your block using a piece of a muslin or any kind of a fabric that you don't, muslin is a great one, and it's a foundation for the block itself. I also went to the thrift shop and I found this sheet. It's a twin size sheet set, and there are some flowers on it, so I could actually use this. I can wash this, cut it up into the size squares that I need, and then as I am using it for foundation piecing, I would just want to make sure that I'm putting the darker fabrics over anything that had the flowers on it so that it wouldn't poke through or show through on the light part of the fabric or the block. So that's certainly something that you can do. Grab something like a sheet at the thrift store, and you can find many sheets that are very light or just a cream or a white that works beautifully. Go ahead and use those. Just bring them home, wash them up really good, and then get them cut into the size that you want. I chose to cut my muslin into 12.5-inch blocks. So my finished block will be 12 inches. You, again, can cut your foundation block any size you want, 10, 8, 9, whatever you choose. With the 12-inch block, it worked well to use the 2.5-inch wide jelly roll type strips. So that's what I have done. If you're using a smaller foundation block, maybe if you're only using an 8-inch block, you might want to pull your 1.5-inch wide strips or your 2-inch wide strips for that. But just kind of play around and identify what you want to use. And of course, it's all going to depend on what width of fabric strips you have in your stash, because those are the ones you want to use to make up your quilts. So I had a lot of 2.5-inch strips, and this, as you can tell in this container, is just reds, lights, and greens. So I've got a ton. I could make this quilt a whole lot bigger than what it is, but I have almost 300 quilts in my home. So I rarely make any quilt that's larger than a wall-size quilt because I just don't have room for them. Many of them they go with my lectures and workshops, so they're quilts that I need to maintain for those purposes. Now let's see how we create each of these blocks. All right, as you can see, I've started this block here. I did want to mention, as I was cutting up my muslin when I made my 12.5-inch blocks, I kept ending up with these little 3.5-inch strips, which are perfect for stripped borders. So I've got a bunch of them, and I will be able to create borders. As you can see, I've got one started here. I'll have to trim it up. And so that will be my piano key type border using the foundation piecing, and we'll get to that later. But here is my first block that I'm going to be sharing with you. And what I did for these blocks, as you can see in here, I simply grabbed the red one first and laid it wrong sides with the muslin, and I tried to center it across the point there. So that first block I just laid across the center. Then I took this green one here and I laid it just like I'm doing here, and laid it across there, and I am going to stitch 1/4 inch seam allowance from top to bottom. You want to make sure you've got some excess on each side so that when you flip it over, it will in fact cover the rest of that white muslin. You want all of that there. So these got all wrinkled on the trip home, so I really needed to press these. I should give them all a good press before I keep going here. But so I've got this side has already been done. I've gone ahead and just kept adding a strip until I got out to the corner there, and I will eventually get this all squared up, and all of this leftover stuff can either go in my crumb stash, or I might be able to use the larger pieces on another block in the smaller sections here. So nothing has to go to waste. In fact, I had a couple of, here they are, a couple of bags. These are the reds and greens, and these are the lights from last week as I was making all my blocks. And these are going to be crumbs In fact, I created a crumb block while I was there. This is with all the leftover pieces. So this is definitely something that you can do, and make sure you're using up all of your scraps. Nothing has to go into the trash. So now what I'm going to do again is take this dark green. I'm just doing red, green on this particular block. I'm going to line it up, take it to the machine, do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it. Make sure when you press it, you're not getting any folds in those seams. You want to make sure everything is pressed out beautifully. And then we'll continue. I'll do another red and another green to fill this out. If you have smaller strips, you'll probably have a lot more scraps, and you could actually do this with various size strips. You could use your 2.5 and your 2 and your 1.5 inch strips across this. That would really be fun, and what a great way. It's a great stash buster. So that's another thought. Use all of your strips with each block. So let me go ahead and sew this, and I'll bring it back and show you how that works. All right, so I have just finished this one right here. I'll pull that out. And I've stitched it and flipped it and pressed it. And you want to make sure that there are no creases there. I always like to do a finger pressing first, and then I'll press it over. So this is ready to go, and now I can add another red. Let me see what I can find here that I haven't already used. We'll try this one. And so here's another one, and I will simply, as you can see, I'm extending beyond the ends of each of these so that it will in fact cover the white block. And I'm just going to continue doing that. I'll do a red one, and then I'll do another green one. So that is how I'm going to finish this block until it's completely covered. And that will create a dark black. Now you can do the same thing with all of your lights as well. As you saw on the wall there, I had some that just had lights all the way across. So I started with a light in the center, and I just kept adding lights on each side until I had the whole block finished with nothing but light strips. This is a block that will be nothing but dark strips. Now let me show you how I did the block that's both light and dark. Before I actually show you how to do the 1/2 and 1/2 block, I want to show you how to trim up each of these. So here is my red one, it's finished, or my dark one, I should say, it is finished. And as I had mentioned before, my foundation block is 12.5 inches, and that 1/2 inch allows for the 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. So I turn the block over, and I am gonna follow the block itself. And a lot of this can go into a pet pillow for stuffing, but all of this can become a crumb fabric for crumb quilting. So I'm going to save that. And here we go again. I'm going to just continue cutting this, following the block itself as my guide. And these I can continue using, and I'll use my seam ripper and pull that apart. But all of this can be reused, and if it's too small, it becomes pet pillow stuffing. Or just pillow stuffing. If you like to make pillows for around your home, it's certainly something that you can use in that fashion. And there's the block, 12.5 inches. So that's a dark block, and you do the light blocks the same way, but you just start out with a light fabric in the center, and you just keep adding lights on each side all the way across the block. So I've got the first light centered over the points of the block, and I'm going to take this one, the next light, right sides together, lay it down there, do a stitching line there, 1/4 inch, flip it, press it, continue finishing on that side, and then I'll come back and finish on this side. So that's how those blocks are finished. Now, let's take a look at how you do the block that's 1/2 and 1/2. All right, so here is a block, and what I want to do with this one is 1/2 of it is going to be dark, 1/2 of it is going to be light. And what I have done is taken my ruler, and I've lined it up so that 1/4 inch is on the opposite side of the corner. There's the diagonal line, but that's going to be my stitching line. So I want to draw a line that's 1/4 inch away from that diagonal line, which is where I will line up. Let me grab a piece of fabric here. That one's not long enough. Grab this one. So on that 1/4 inch, or on that diagonal line there, is where I am going to place my first strip. And in this case, my darks are going to go this way. Now, the reason I have that drawn line 1/4 inch away from the actual corner is so that I'm allowing for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now what I can do, let's say I want to head that direction, I can put a light right here, line it up, I'll stitch 1/4 inch, and let's pretend it's stitched, and then I will fold it back. And then the stitching line will be exactly in the center of that block on the diagonal. And that's important to create those beautiful points. Now, you can certainly not worry about that and have more wacky looking points by starting in the middle again. And then your light fabric that you put over here, it's not going to be as large. That part which is light, or maybe that part which is dark, will not be as large as the opposite side. And that will create sort of wonky looking stars, which is another fun design. So a couple of ways you can do this. For me, I chose to go ahead and lay my first strip on the line, and then my strip on top of that, right sides together, lined up with that, and I'm going to be stitching right on that 45-degree line all the way down. And it will be a perfect division so that this side of the square and this side of the square are even. All of this will be light, all of this will be dark, and then I will have created a light, dark block. All right, so I've sewn on the stitching line, which is the exact diagonal across the block. And so the light half of this block and the dark half of this block will be the same. And I went ahead and pressed it open, and now I can continue working my way across. So for the dark side, I can lay this over here, stitch and press, and just keep making this side dark. And for the light side, I grab a light one here and lay it right sides there, stitch and press. So I'll continue stitching lights on that side and stitching darks on this side until I create a block that's light dark. So what this quilt design needs is dark quilts, or dark blocks, light blocks, and light dark blocks. Testing. All right, as you can see, I'm working my way across the block. So this is the dark side and this is the light side. I have a green now, and you can make these blocks in any color that you choose. You don't have to stick with certain colors. You can use all of your scraps. Maybe you have a ton of blues or a ton of reds or a ton of greens in your stash, and you just want to use that all up. What a beautiful quilt that would make. So don't do exactly as I'm doing. Use your own imagination and have fun creating something beautiful. And then I'm going to finish this last one here. I think I might have to add one little piece on the end of it here, and then I will have my light dark block finished. Once it is finished, I will trim it up again to 12.5 inches, just like the other one. Now, let's take a look at the border and how I'm going to be doing the border. I'm going to quick show you how I'm going to cut up the light dark block. Obviously, it's going to be the same, and all of the leftovers I'm going to use in some form or fashion. I love Crumb quilting. If you're not familiar with Crumb quilting, I have an entire playlist on how to make Crumb blocks and Crumb quilts. So check that out. That will be in the description box below. There's lots of things that you can find out there. So much information. So I'm trimming this up. All right, so there is the light dark. Here is the dark, and I haven't made a complete light one for you on the table here yet, but and the other block that would be just like this one would be all lights, and this one is half and half, half lights, half darks. And I've used the diagonal line as my stitching line for this. So that takes care of those. Now, if you'd like to do a border similar to what I'm doing, I just took a lot of those leftover pieces of muslin. They're 12.5 inches long, 3.5 inches wide. I've gone ahead and stitched my reds and greens on there. Of course, you can make this as scrappy as you want, however you choose to create it. And then I'm simply going to go ahead and trim this up to match the foundation behind it. And I simply started on one end. I believe, actually, I think I started on this red end, and then I laid the green one right sides together, stitched the line, flipped it over, pressed it, laid this one right sides together, stitched the seam allowance, pressed it over. Then I did the green, then I did the red, then I did the green. So you just start at one end and you just continue stitching across. So this will be the border. I might offset the entire quilt with a 1-inch border, a plain border, to offset the piano key border. We'll see. Once I get the quilt done, I'll identify what I need to do at that point. But this would be a great way to use up your leftover pieces. And I am all about using your scrap stash in any way possible to make beautiful, beautiful quilts. All right, so I've shown you how to make the 2 different blocks for this Two's Company quilt, as well as a border if you choose to use this type of a border. Now I just want to share with those of you who might not be familiar with crumb quilting. I went through last week as I was creating or chopping off the edges of, or trimming up the blocks themselves. I wanted to go ahead and just put them together in a block right away. So that's what I was doing. And so I'm going to share with you how I did that. You'll see some of these weird pieces here. I am simply going to take them to my machine and start sewing straight seams across. Nothing really will be matchy-matchy. I'm just going to find what I can and create fabric. Basically, that's what I'm doing, is creating fabric from the leftovers. So we'll put that there. I can put this one here, so I can stitch here, I can stitch there. I'm going to go ahead and stitch those, bring those back, and show you what I've started. I brought you down a little closer to where I am. So I've sewn some straight seams. You don't want to sew any curves. You want to always sew a straight seam. You don't want hills and valleys in your fabric. And I'm simply going to finger press open. Before you do that, you can also get rid of, let me grab a ruler here, get rid of excess fabric. You only want a 1/4-inch seam allowance in all of the seams. And so if you find that there's some excess fabric somewhere, you can absolutely get rid of that. So I'm just going to trim away a little of that, trim that away. There we go. I can trim that away. We don't need all of that excess. Now here we've got some wonky stuff sticking off there. I can get rid of that now, or I can wait and get rid of it later, but I want a straight seam there. I noticed in this one that there is a hole there. You can see my fingernail came through there, so that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do, instead of actually taking that out, I'm simply going to get rid of that, press this open, and I can find another piece of fabric. Let me find something smaller, because I know I have some smaller ones here. I guess some of these I had already started. Here's a smaller one. Nope. Here we go. Here's a green one. I could add that right there and sew that. And then I can just start putting them all together and creating fabric. And it's a wonky looking thing, but that's the fun of it. I absolutely love doing this. And you need to have some longer pieces to stretch across. So just have fun and just keep putting together pieces of fabric that will go together. I'll sew a few more of these and I'll bring them back and show you what I've done. So this is actually fun and rather addicting. Once you get started, you don't want to stop. So here is what I've got. Most of the pieces that that I have to work with are triangle, have some triangle ends, or sort of half square triangle pieces, if you will. And so that's a lot of what I'm working with. That isn't always the case. But here are some of these pieces that I have created from the crumbs. I'm just going to get rid of some of the excess here. I'll add that on there, and then I can put that one together. I can add this one here, and then trim it up so I have a straight line, and I can add that all together, and I'm creating another block. And I just keep working with all of my leftover pieces, making fabric. It's called crumb fabric, and you're making some beautiful blocks with it. Let me show you a crumb quilt that I've just finished quilting. I actually created the quilt 2 years ago. I'll have that crumb quilt playlist in my description box, and you can actually go out and see how I made this quilt and follow along step by step and use your crumbs and your fabric to do so. All right, so here it is. I think I'm going to have to hold it up or maybe put it down on the floor for you to see it all. But I teach you in that series of crumb tutorials, how to make the fabric and then cut out the orange peels for the flower and the circles. I teach you how to use adding machine tape to create the sashing or this border around the center medallion. I teach you how to make crumb fabric and then cut out some hexes, which I've appliqued throughout the quilt. I also teach you in that Crumb quilt tutorial how to make this beautiful sashing or border out here. It's a wonderful curved border. And so that is something that you can learn and you can do. And I just used a simple yellow, bright yellow fabric. And isn't it gorgeous? It's going to be fun to hang this in my foyer for the fall season. It's just a beautiful, beautiful quilt using nothing but crumbs. It's leftover pieces from previous projects that you've sewn together and made new fabric with. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed learning how you can use your scrap stash, making these 2 simple blocks and just having fun creating a design that's all your own. You don't have to follow mine. Use your imagination and have fun with it. And I would love to see photos of the quilts that you come up with. So if you don't mind posting those out on my Facebook group page, Quilting with Lori, Scrap Up Your Stash. So there'll be a link below. Please go out there and post photos of your blocks and your quilts that you're putting together. Everyone loves to see that. It's always an inspiration to see what others are doing. Don't forget to go to the description box below and grab that link, click on that, and it will go out and tell you more about my membership on my YouTube channel. There's a level 1 and a level 2. The level 1 has to do with the Zoom classes every month, and level 2 obviously gets those Zoom classes as well, and the description box will tell you everything that you need to know. But go ahead and click on that. I want to be able to meet with you next Friday, August 22, and Zoom with you so that you can learn how to get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use. I love being able to meet you in person via Zoom and answer any of your questions. And then on September 20th, we'll be doing this Jelly Roll quilt on Jelly Roll Saturday. So we'll want to get together on that as well. So you'll want to join so you can participate on that Jelly Roll Saturday and get this pattern and have fun creating that beautiful quilt on Jelly Roll Saturday. So again, membership level number 1 for the Zoom. So don't forget to check that out and then go out to my quiltingwithlori.com website. Go to the contact page, email me, let me know your email address and that you've joined the membership so that I can send you that Zoom link so that we can have fun together on August 22. I do plan to make a video on Friday, which will tell you all about the level number 2 block of the month that's coming up. Spring is in the air. I shared a little bit about that in the membership video a few weeks ago. So check that out. But on Friday, I'm going to do an introduction to that class so that if you're interested in becoming a member of level 2 as well, you'll see what's going on with that. So check back on Friday for that. And if you like the content that I provide, please go ahead and like and subscribe and make a comment. All of that really does help the channel to get out to other quilters just like yourself. I appreciate that so much. So until next time, happy quilting.